Welcome back to the program. This is the first live show for 2018. Of course, throughout last week, we're reviewing 2017. So if you're just joining us, thank you for joining us and welcome to the program Moneyline with Nancy. I wish you a very prosperous year. Earlier on, I did talk about the kind of conversation we should be having in 2018, and my guest is here right now, Dr. Kingsley Moghalu. He was the Deputy Governor at the Central Bank of Nigeria. He was in charge of the Financial System Stability Directorate. Dr. Moghalu completed his tenure at the CBN. He was appointed Professor of Practice in International Business and Public Policy at the Fletcher School of Diplomacy, or the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University in Massachusetts, USA since 2015. He's the President, Institute for Governance and Economic Transformation, and he has also worked in the United Nations for 17 years. I also want to say he's the author of several books, including Emerging Africa, How the Global Economy's Last Frontier Can Prosper, and Malta. Perhaps I should also tell him to author a book, Emerging Nigeria, if we're emerging at all. Dr. Moghalu, welcome to the show. Good to see you. Long time no see. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. By the grace of God.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
So you're back to Nigeria because
yes,
I know.
I am full-time, and I've set up a new think tank, the Institute for Governance and Economic Transformation, to educate Nigerians on the basics of good governance and economic progress.
Why did you do that?
Because I noticed that there's a very huge gap. Nigerian citizens are not holding their governments and their leaders accountable. And one of the reasons they're not able to hold their political leaders accountable is because they don't understand the issues. It's not a very educated citizenry in terms of economics, in terms of what good governance actually means. And so you find that the standards have become very low. You know, for example, taxes. Most Nigerian citizens don't understand issues concerning taxation. The only thing they know is that they would rather not pay the tax because they don't trust their governments. The governments are not providing good health care. The governments are not providing good education systems. The governments are not providing the level of infrastructure they should. So, for example, Nigerian citizens need to know what a social contract is. They ought to pay their taxes, but they ought to have a social contract with their political leadership. Should they demand that social contract? You provide us good hospitals, good schools, we will pay our taxes. So these are the levels of accountability. The solution is not to keep dodging paying taxes. Do you see what I'm saying? It's to demand of the political leadership what they ought to provide as the government.
Don't you think that the political leadership has also taken the citizens for granted?
Of course they have.
Because you said that we don't have that level of information. That's why I have this program, for example, to educate and inform people on what's happening, not just the economics landscape, but the socio-economic landscape. Sure. That this is what the government is doing. You should demand this sort of role and responsibility from the government. With what you said, that we don't have so much information, yet we churn out graduates all the time, every year. But we are seeing that we're not seeing enough in terms of information and in terms of demanding accountability from the government or the politicians.
Let me tell you, regardless of how many graduates you churn out every year, there are two problems. First of all, the Nigerian citizens need to wake up. Nigerian citizens have been docile for far too long. And that's why this country is very, very poor indeed. Don't let anybody fool you. Look at the statistics that Nigerians should be looking at in 2018. Now, we have just 4,000 megawatts of electricity in a population of 180 million people.
And yet we don't even know the exact population we are.
Exactly. Now, South Africa is 50 million people.
Yes.
They have 40,000 megawatts of electricity. Yeah? We have 12 million children of school age out of school, the highest such population in the world. We have 30 million Nigerians unemployed. Unemployment at 19%. Very, very high. So the poverty rate is about 60%. We are spending over 60% of our revenue servicing foreign debt. These are the real issues. It's time we stopped worshiping the gods of small things. It's time we stopped worshiping the God of the belly. People tell you about stomach infrastructure. We should be talking about mental infrastructure. That's what I'm talking about. The mental infrastructure provides the sustainability of individual progress and the economic growth of the country, because that has to move from growth. Just mere infinitesimal movements of economic growth statistics do not mean anything. What matters is the quality of life of Nigerian citizens. What's their quality of life? Do they have good health care? Do they have good education systems? Do they have long life expectancy? That's what should matter to our government. So people should not be fooled by people coming to tell you that GDP is growing by 0.55%. That is just irrelevant. The important thing is that most Nigerians are extremely poor. How do we move millions of Nigerians from poverty into the middle class?
Don't you think the government now, the political leadership especially,
Yes.
because we'll be discussing a bit of politics this morning,
Absolutely.
because this 2018 is a very crucial year.
Yeah.
Don't you think that the poverty, extreme poverty in the country, has also given the government, political leadership, so much advantage to take Nigerians for a ride?
Of course.
Thank you. I feel like giving you a high five right now. Perhaps I should give you a high five. Why? Because of what you said of the docility. Because I've said it several times on
Yes.
air that as Nigerians, we need to move from that level of docility
Yes.
to a point of action.
This
that
is
we
the real
need
problem.
to begin to demand accountability from leadership. I don't care if it's PDP or APC or
Doesn't
XYZ. It doesn't, I don't care.
Yeah.
What I care for is good governance, because
Yes.
I'm looking at nations that we are way above in natural resources, mental,
Absolutely.
and they are doing better than us. And I'm
Exactly.
wondering, we are still talking the mundane issues.
Let me tell you, Nancy, you see, in most countries and in most societies, it is the duty of leadership to move the society from point A to point B in terms of progress. But it's very clear that the political leadership class in Nigeria has failed, and they have failed woefully. They have failed because they are not competent. They have failed because they lack vision. They have failed because they're selfish and corrupt, broadly speaking. There may be exceptions here and there, but as a broad rule, this is the reality. Now, since the leadership, the political class, has failed to provide that leadership that it's their duty to provide, it now becomes the duty of the citizens to force a change in their circumstances and to change their future by changing their leadership or by holding their leadership accountable.
How can we change that future when a lot of us are poor, a lot of us live on around $1.90 a day. A lot of us would largely take the stomach infrastructure
Yes.
to live for that day and say tomorrow we sort out itself. And
That's-
those people are still in power.
That's one of the reasons why I have set up the Institute for Governance and Economic Transformation. Our duty is to educate ourselves. Our duty is to educate our citizens, for them to understand that the medium to longer term matters more than your eating today and remaining poor forever. Nobody should come and give you 2,000 naira to sell your vote, and 4 years after, your son still doesn't have a job, your daughter still doesn't have a job, and they come back and give you another 2,000 naira and you vote for them. Truly, like you say, this is a function of poverty. But education and a strong will and vision and hope can take us to act, even though we are poor, to act to create the basis for our future wealth.
Perhaps that poverty should be an incentive to say we don't want to remain poor again.
Precisely.
And that the narrative should change.
Exactly. But the only way the narrative can change is if the citizens elect leaders who have the vision, who have the worldview, who have the competence to take them to a different place.
How can they elect leaders the way it is right now with this landscape we have, the political landscape of PDP still trying to get itself in order, and APC that is in government now with the same like recycled people?
Yeah.
Is there a new, can there be a new platform? Because a lot of people, I also fear, I've said it a lot of times, that PDP is not even in order now. APC, some people are not happy with what APC is doing. What is the alternative in 2019?
Good, good. I think you've come to the heart of the matter. The truth of the matter is that something is beginning to awaken in Nigerians. If you notice, if you look at the political process, you will see that there are lots of new parties, there are lots of young, youth-oriented parties now coming up. There are increasingly a number of people saying enough is enough. We've had enough of the status quo and we must break the status quo. Now, the duty of Nigerian citizens is to develop the courage to give a chance to people who are now arguing for a change in the status quo to prove themselves if those people are given an opportunity. But if you're like the Stockholm hostage type, or if you're suffering from the Stockholm hostage syndrome, where you have fallen in love with those who have captured you and you don't want to leave them, then that's your own problem. But if the citizens say, look, these guys have not delivered, the current political leadership class, let's try something new, let's try something younger, let's try something technocratic in terms of competence and ability, let's move away from politics into the question of leadership. Politics and leadership are not the same things. In Nigeria, our politicians are all politics but no leadership. They can't lead because they cannot envision, they cannot inspire, they cannot motivate. Their actions do not give you hope. They're just out there for themselves. So that's a different thing from leadership. Leadership is providing hope. Leadership is providing direction. Leadership is mobilizing for progress. So, but that's not what we're getting. So our citizens must now say, let's try a different class of people. My own recommendation is that except Nigerians begin to elect technocrats into political leadership positions, this country will not make progress, because the leadership class we have is simply not intellectually equipped to solve the problems of this country. How do you provide good healthcare if you don't understand health systems? How do you provide a good education system if you're not embedded in understanding those issues? Those are intellectual and technical facts.
And the education of the future.
Exactly.
They are still providing education of now, education of the future.
Precisely. So if somebody's career has been just going around distributing bags of rice or buying votes or just, dancing on the stage, that's a different thing from the hard work of transformation, of economic transformation. You need to elect leaders who understand that there is a difference between economic growth statistics. Anything can give you GDP growth. If the oil price is rising, it gives you GDP growth, but it doesn't create jobs. So our citizens need to be educated to understand these things. There's a difference between economic growth and economic development, which is the quality of life holistically. Yeah. Then there's a difference between economic development and economic transformation, which is moving into industrialization, manufacturing, competitive exports. That is where you find Japan. That is where you find South Korea. That is where you find Israel. That is where you find increasingly Brazil, Malaysia, countries where we started off with or we were better than, but because they had better leaders who had vision. But we have not, in many recent years or decades, had that type of leadership. That's why we are where we are today. So there is no solution except we change the leadership class, and that's the job of the citizens. It's nobody else's job.
Apart from ours.
Apart from ours, yes.
Can that be changed without money prowess, without the money power, without the ego power, kudi power?
Well, you see, it's about
creating new platforms now that will bring in these visionary leaders.
Yeah, let me tell you what our citizens should do. It's not rocket science. Yes, you need money for politics, for the legitimate processes of politics. If you want to organize a party, if you want to, sure, there will be legitimate expenses.
Your forms, all those
exactly,
things.
All those things, yeah? But that's a big difference from what a lot of money is spent for in Nigerian politics today. 70% of the money that is spent in Nigerian politics is not for what really matters. It's for bribery, and a lot of people the money will enter into a lot of private pockets, and it will not actually achieve the purposes for which it was. So Nigerian citizens can raise the money for their own political emancipation. They can contribute. We are 180 million people. If you give just 100 naira or 1,000 naira to your, the political leaders you want to support for change and real change, not just slogan change, but real change, and transformation. If citizens rise up and contribute their widow's mite, enough money will be raised for the processes that will take this country to a better place in terms of leadership selection. Yeah.
I think there was a time they did that in South Korea. Even women started bringing out their gold, their jewelry.
Yes. So the citizens just have to, Nigeria needs a democratic revolution at the ballot box.
Do you think we are ready for that? Or we are just paying lip service to it? Every Nigerian wants, is it change now, transformation? Because Nigerians say they're tired of this change. Don't give us change again.
Yes.
Give us something else.
Yes.
So I'm echoing what Nigerians are saying. My camera people are laughing. But the thing is, are we ready beyond lip service, beyond what we're saying right now? Are we ready in actions?
Yes, you are right that Nigerian citizens have often sometimes shown themselves incompetent to act according to what they truly say they wish. So it's two sides. You know, it's the leaders that we need to hold accountable. It's the citizens who need to do their duty. The most powerful person in Nigeria today is not Buhari. It's you. It's me as citizens of Nigeria. Do we know that? If we know that, do we have the courage to act on what we know? 2018 is the test of whether Nigerians are sincere or not. And 2019, of course, in their, you know, in most of what they say about how they're governed and how they are not satisfied and what they want for their children and their future. If you want those things for your children and for your future, act on it.
Now you bring me to the
question.
Come
out, register, and vote. You can mouth off all you like. You can type all you like on social media. If you don't have a permanent voter's card, which is your power, if you don't have it, you're just gassing.
But if you have a permanent voter's card and the options we still have are the same options there.
But
PDP
I'm telling you,
and APC.
But I'm telling you that it is very likely that in 2018, 2019, new options will emerge. We can see the signs already. So it's a question for the citizens to have the courage to test those new options since the old options have failed.
You know what you just said, that the most powerful person is you and I.
Yes.
It's not President Buhari. I've seen it playing out now, of course, over this holiday. In fact, over the weekend, some political groups, especially from that of the president, have started going to churches. In fact, to do silent, it's not even silent, open now, as in they come to churches like, oh, we are here from Buhari organization. And I'm saying to myself, oh, they are coming back again since after 2015, so perhaps Nigerians should be wiser at this time. I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it, but what Nigerians there in churches and in mosques that did all those political people go to, be it APC or PDP or XYZ, they should be asking questions.
Yes.
Because I remember even in 2015, in my own local church, a representative came to also campaign for Buhari and all of that. But the question is now, 2-3 years down the line, what has changed? So that's the kind of question we should be asking.
That's the kind of question we should be asking. People have a right to campaign. Buhari has the right to campaign if he wants to campaign. But it's the business of the citizens to hold him accountable. What is your record? What did you promise us in 2015? What have you delivered? That should be the basis upon which citizens make, and that should be asked of any other politician, whether it's a governor, whether it's a member of the National Assembly or the State House of Assembly. So this is the question that citizens should ask of their political class. And, you know, when you're selecting leaders, citizens should know that certain things matter. They should check out the following things. Before you cast your vote for anybody, what is your assessment of the person's character? What is your assessment of the person's competence? What is your assessment of the person's capacity to actually govern? You see, there are a number of things. You have leadership, which we've talked about a lot. From leadership, you go into governance. If you are not a good leader, you cannot govern well. Do you understand this? Good. So now, from governance, you go into public policy. You cannot govern well if you cannot understand, formulate public policy. Even if you formulate public policy, but you also lack the ability to execute it, which means you must monitor, you must organize yourselves, you know, for strategy, implementation, management, all these things. These are all processes to deliver transformation. But how many political leaders in Nigeria today understand it? I was listening to you talking about strategy, implementation, some committees, and I laugh because for those who really understand what strategy means, and you see how it is used in the context of governance in this country, you just have no choice but to have a good laugh.
That's why
because you know, strategy in the context of the Nigerian politician is only about how to hoodwink the citizens and the voters to continue to have their support. It is not about how to achieve a transformation. Look at the fuel crisis. 40 years now, and people are still setting up strategy committees on the fuel crisis.
I cannot fathom it.
It's just amazing to me. Yeah, just amazing to me. So that's why I said it's just time for citizens to act and act in their own collective self-interest.
Okay, for those watching and for those following the program now, in case you want to join this conversation, do that right now on Twitter, on all our social media platforms. Go to Facebook, tweet me at Nancy Ilo, tweet the show Moneyline AIT, and send your comments, your views, and your questions. If you agree with what Dr. Moghalu is saying, send me a tweet. In case you don't also agree, send me a tweet and tell me what you don't agree with.
Sure.
Doctor, why do you think that 2018 is do you think that this year is even a crucial year?
I think it's absolutely an epochal year for Nigeria, not just crucial. Why? Because since 1999, we have been trying to improve our democracy. And we came to a point in 2015 when an incumbent president was actually voted out of office. Now, that was a watershed. So in 2018, we are going to test whether we are making progress along that continuum. Are citizens growing more aware? Are citizens growing bolder, more courageous to act in the interests of Nigeria rather than just ethnic sentiments or religious sentiments or the things that have normally influenced their voting behavior? So this is what 2018 will test. Can we move beyond sentiments and elect competent leaders for this country? That's what 2018 and 2019 will be about. So I think it's epochal because if we get the right type of leadership within the next 10, 15, 20 years, Nigeria could be a very different place. We could have a much better and different future.
Do you think we've moved beyond those sentiments, ethnic sentiment, religious sentiment, that will still tailor our journey to 2019, even this year? The journey which has started, 2018 is very, very crucial, significant to 2019.
One of the things you will notice, we haven't left those sentiments entirely, but I think we should. And one of the reasons you will see that it's looking like people are moving away from it is that people are measuring now performance. A lot of people are saying, you promised us so and so in 2015. We're still hungry. Well, it is a good thing that you and I are from the same tribe. It is a good thing that you and I, worship in the same way. But sorry, my child needs good health care. Sorry, my daughter or my son needs to have a job. So if this kind of thinking becomes widespread, then you will see a shift away from sentiments. But it requires constant education of the citizenry, by people who are leaders in the true sense of the word and by citizens who are committed to their own future.
Okay, let me just take a few comments coming through. Obi Kings on Twitter says, our problems is citizens showing incompetence to act on what we know. I fully agree with your guest. Moghalu says, what we see play out in Nigeria now is a corollary of leadership deficiency. Like your guest said, it's not enough to get technocrats into politics. What we have is a systemic decay of several years. We need a holistic approach to clear the urgent table. Keep your comments coming through. Tweet me at Nancy. Tweet the show also at Moneyline AIT. Facebook us, Moneyline with Nancy. Very crucial indeed, 2018.
Absolutely crucial year. I mean, the future of Nigeria, I believe, will be decided 2018, 2019. It will determine whether we continue to swim in the mud that we've been swimming in for so many years, or whether we decide to break out into a different direction. So in a sense, we've come to a fork in the road. So you could go this way, or you could go that way. And that's why I say that the rise of youth-oriented political parties is an interesting and important development. It shows that people are beginning to wake up. The next test is mobilization. Can they, you can wake up and sit down and be watching TV. So there's sleeping, there's waking up, and there's waking up and moving and acting. So the test is whether people are waking up, but are they sitting down watching television, or are they now going to move and act? So this is what 2018 will show us. And the key, in my view, is the youth. The politics of Nigeria, in my view, should be about the future of our youth. We have 60 million Nigerians aged between 18 and 35. What is their future? Do you know that according to United Nations population trends, by 2050, Nigeria could be up to 400 million people? What is the future?
450 million.
Yes, what is the future of those 450 million people on the current trends? If we follow current trends, in 2050, we could start eating each other.
Which is 32 years down the line.
32 years
Which is
down
just
the line.
like by the corner.
Yes, but you know, it's also enough time to totally
plan.
change our trajectory, provided you put at the helm the kind of people with the vision, with the passion for Nigeria, the dedication for Nigeria, and with the competence to actually drive progress. Not people who will come and tell you, vote for me because of my ethnic group, or come and vote for me because of my religion. Our tribe must be in power, our religion must be in power. Those are very low-level things. When you see people who think and act in this manner, they never make progress. You know, so we should be more interested in progress. And for us to make progress, we must rise above those base sentiments that have kept us down.
You just said for us to achieve that progress, that we must rise above those sentiments. Are there other things that we need to make us more progressive?
Yes, there are a number of things actually we need. First of all, I think that the whole question of leadership training should become very, very important, even within the political class in Nigeria. I think that all political parties should invest money in training their members in leadership. Leadership is becoming a science. It's something people study, get degrees, doctorates in, and so on. You know, and for a developing country, you are not a good leader if you're not transformative. If you can't take people from point A to point B, you can answer leader. Because people are confusing authority with leadership. Authority is just one instrument through which leadership is exercised. But authority in and of itself is not leadership. You can have the authority and use it very badly or not use it at all, in which case you're not a leader. So people need to, these things require training. People need to be taught. You know, I mean, they say some leaders are born.
That's what I was coming to.
Some are made.
Yes, that's what I was coming to.
Some have leadership thrust upon them. You know, we've
yeah,
had those
yeah,
sayings.
that's what I. So which is the best option? Whether leaders are born?
No.
Because can you actually train a leader?
You can. You can. That's why leadership is a subject. It is a rational thing that you can actually acquire. All of us are leaders. You are a leader, Nancy. I am a leader. All Nigerians are potential leaders if you train them and if you teach them from the school educational system about what leadership means. I believe, for example, and I've said this before, that in regard to unemployment, there are two ways you solve the unemployment problem. Because first of all, in this country, a lot of people in authority think only short term. They're just ad hoc. They're reactive. They're not proactive. Now, if you want to solve the unemployment problem, just as one example of what leadership could do, the first place you have to begin is in the educational system. Because the educational system we have in Nigeria today is churning out, it's a straight pipeline into unemployment. Why? Because most of our graduates do not have the skills that are fit for purpose. So, if you change the educational system to begin to impart those skills of vocational skills, of entrepreneurship, of technology and innovation, then you have started on what may be a longer journey towards a different society where unemployment goes down dramatically. Second, it is much better to teach a man how to fish than to give him fish. So giving somebody 5,000 naira every month and say it's some stipend because you're unemployed, I find that a wasteful use of resources. And I understand that about 500 billion is budgeted a year.
Social intervention.
Yeah, social intervention fund. That 500 billion would be much more useful, achieve much higher impact if you turned it into a venture capital fund that invests in new businesses. And you can that will create more jobs. Yeah. Because jobs are created by the private sector, by small businesses in most countries. The government itself does not create jobs. The government creates the environment where jobs are created. So, for example, if you said that 500 billion, we're using it to turn it into a venture capital fund, and we will ask the private sector to bring another 500 billion, and we could have 1 trillion. And that will begin to invest in companies, and people will begin to create jobs. So these are approaches to leadership. But if you're not trained, if you haven't been trained, why do you think Harvard University or Lagos Business School or a lot of business schools have leadership training programs? It's because leadership can be learned, it can be acquired, and each and every one of us is a potential leader. So I recommend that this whole question of leadership becomes a core part of our educational curriculum, starting from primary, secondary schools, along with patriotism. So there's another thing that is very necessary, and that is this. Leadership, for it to be effective, must have something that is called a worldview. A worldview is an understanding of the world and where you are in it as a society. Not an individual. We have individual worldviews, but as a society, that is to say, what is the society's ambition?
Yes.
And that worldview has inside it a component of a value system. What is the value system that will govern this country? What is our strategic goal, and how are we going to get there? So these are the elements of a worldview that a leader must have. What is the difference between us and other societies? What's the difference between us and Malaysia, for example? And how can we close that gap, the transformation gap, as we call it in strategy?
Yeah.
So these are some of the things.
The usual strategy, that phrase, that word, strategy.
No,
I don't want to hear it again.
No, in Nigeria, it's used as politics. But
what are you strategic?
But strategy means something
else. That's what I actually said this morning.
We now begin to elect leaders who understand the real meaning of strategy and the processes through which strategy is executed. Tony Blair, when he was Prime Minister of Britain, he had a strategy unit in number 10 Downing Street.
Downing Street.
That strategy unit ensured that every strand of activity in his government was built around a theme. For him, his main goal was education reform in the United Kingdom. So a lot of the actions of his government all tied into these things. So in China, we saw it, how over a period of 30, 40 years, China moved from being a poor country, moved 500 million people out of poverty into the middle class. This takes a lot of intellectual heavy lifting. That's why, I'm sorry to say, intellect matters. Ideas matter, because ideas rule the world. But if you come to Nigeria, where you find politicians telling you, that man, he too blow grammar. Don't blow grammar for us. Know that these are people who are very backward, and they're trying to hold you down. Look for people who are educated, people who respect knowledge, and people who want to apply knowledge to how society can become a better place. Those are the kinds of leaders we should be looking for.
Doctor, you've been hitting my nerves, in the sense, I'm telling you, because you've echoed all the things I've echoed for the past few years that I've been doing a business show, that we need to begin to think like this. I don't know, but
I say something that makes people laugh. Thinking is more important than we think.
Yeah, thinking is more important than we think.
Yeah. Thinking is more important.
Because that's where the work is done.
That's where the work is done. That's where the heavy lifting is done. If you can't conceptualize it, you can't apply it. Let's just be very clear. So somebody who says, don't blow grammar, well, tell me the practical. The person is a clown.
What you can't see, you can't have. So you begin to see it. And where do you begin to see it first? In your mind. Begin to think of it.
Absolutely,
Let me take, many comments are coming through, a lot of them. Ajibola says the first step out of this failing governance structure is to restructure the wealth management system of the country. I just have to read others. Dino says it to be a lie and sheer blindness not to see any change. Change is a gradual thing, painful process. Technocrats are handling the various sectors. The president does not need to be a technocrat.
Let me answer that. Let me answer that. There are many technocrats in Nigeria. Thousands. This country is one of the most endowed countries in terms of, intellectuals, right? Why are we poor? If all these technocrats who are in charge of all these sectors, to answer my very dear and respected countryman or woman, why are we where we are? The reason why we're where we are is that no country can develop beyond the capacity
of its people,
of its political leaders.
High five again. Oh, I always say it here.
Of its political leaders. So let me give you an example. So it doesn't matter how many technocrats you put in anywhere. The final decisions are made by elected political leaders. So it's their capacity that matters. Now, if the technocrats are coming up with good ideas, and those good ideas are against vested interests that are servicing the elected political leaders in power, the political leader will stop those ideas so that his base or his
will be attended to.
This is what frustrates many technocrats in this country. I have been a technocrat in this country, so I know what I am saying, and I don't even want to say half of what I know. So the real decisions are made by people who are political leaders, and they are made at night, and they are made in places that are not offices. So yes, people gather at night and make real decisions. So you come out in the morning, you're technocrat this, you're technocrat that, but you'll be frustrated.
Okay.
That's why I believe that technocrats must now move into political leadership.
Okay. Many comments. Joel says, Nancy, we are enjoying your program, and I also agree with your guests. Many. Dixon said the political class has really choked out technocrats from the political sphere. All I said were people suddenly in a hurry after 16 lost years in the 16 lost years in democracy. It baffles that no one appointee in government resigns even for non-performance. Abdullah says, I agree, but the problem is the technocrats don't want to participate in politics. They call it or see it as a dirty game.
Dirty game, yes. Let me answer that point as well. And I want to plead guilty that I used to be one of those technocrats who saw politics as a dirty game. And if you told me about politics, I would tell you, oh no, I don't want to come near it. I've changed. I'm now born again. Let me explain. Let me explain. Because I have realized that without politics, without getting involved in politics, you can never change the society. So, and I think more and more technocrats are coming to this realization. Speaking for myself, I have come to this realization. And that's why I am moving into the ring in various ways. There are many ways of playing politics, and I'll decide exactly how I will get involved.
I don't want to be categorical and ask you that question. Perhaps you tell me later. What kind? I don't want to ask you now. But lastly, Shadrach says Mario says on Facebook, nice program. Of a truth, mental infrastructure is what we need now. Shadrach says every Christian should try and get their voters card and vote for the right person.